right. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, everyone. This is Follow the Money brought to you by Nairametrics. My God, looks like it's been ages since I've been in the studio. Wow, what a week it was for the Nigerian stock market last week. I think that last week was probably the best week that I've seen in a long time. I've been covering this market for over a decade, and it's just amazing what I saw, what a lot of us witnessed last week, which I'm going to get to at some point on this show. But before we get there, it's looking like it's going to be a very busy week. In fact, the whole of last week was actually good. In fact, this weekend was a good one because right over there in America, they are celebrating what they call the crypto week. The crypto week ended over the weekend when Donald Trump finally signed what they call the Genius Bill. So the Genius Bill is basically the bill that has now given cryptocurrency the sort of legislative backing that a lot of crypto buffs have been looking for outside the country. So, in the US, I beg your pardon. So that has been a global boost to the crypto market globally. And we've seen Bitcoin, flagship cryptocurrency, surge past 110,000 points, amazingly. And so that has been, good news for crypto. Now, coming on the back of that, this week is the first MPC in a couple of months. Yeah, so the first MPC, that's the Monetary Policy Committee meeting in the second half of the year. So that is coming up today and tomorrow. So we're probably going to hear MPC, Monetary Policy Committee pronouncement sometime this week. Who knows? Are they going to cut rates or are they going to raise rates? We're going to find out pretty soon. We do have a number of articles on Nairametrics with different predictions of what rate cuts might look like over the next, when the MPC does meet. But a lot of things are going to be on your mind, of course. They're going to be thinking about, inflation, and inflation has been trending down anyway. So they're probably going to look at inflation numbers. They're likely going to address forbearance issues that banks had to deal with. That was all over the news a few weeks ago. I'm sure they're probably going to also touch on bank recapitalization and the impact so far, and general nature of the economy as well, which the central bank has been tracking. And more importantly, we're going to hear some of the secrets behind the exchange rate appreciation that we've seen in the last few weeks. In fact, these days, there's no difference between the parallel market, or like as some call it, the black market, and the official market anymore, because it's basically like 5 and 6, right? So very close to each other. And so you might expect to hear a lot from that. Of course, expect us to cover this back to back at Nairametrics during the week as we track the economy. So back to the stock market. What a week it was for the market. Nigerian stock market posted one of the most impressive performances that we have seen yet in 2025 during the week, as the all-share index surged a whopping 5.3%. I mean, think about it, 5.3% in 1 week. This is some of the things that you get in 1 year. You get it in 1 week to close at over 100,000 points, of course, pushed largely by rallies in the banking and insurance sector. So it was a pretty strong market. We saw 131,585. Yeah, 131,585.66 points. That's where we are now in the stock market. So 4.3% gain. Did I say 5%? No. 4.3% gain from the week before, making it one of the strongest weeks that we've ever seen. Of course, market capitalization, which is the value of the total, of all the stocks in the NGX, also swelled to 83 trillion, a sharp increase from 79.8 trillion the week before. So it's looking like we might just hit the 100 trillion in market cap by the time the year is done, if we continue with this sort of trajectory. It's just incredible. Of course, there were about 90 49 stocks recorded gains, down from about 90 the week before. But I mean, stocks that recorded gains were super stocks, so that really helped the market, while we had 54 decliners from 16 the week before. Despite this, like I said, all the major heavyweights did post mega gains, particularly the SWOT stocks. You know, the SWOT stocks? The SWOT stocks are stocks worth over 1 trillion naira, and there are quite a number of them. I think about a dozen of them now. So we have a lot more SWOT stocks than we used to when we just started this. And so let's also remember that it was only 4 days that we traded last week. It wasn't even the entire week. It was 4 days that we traded last week. So that was even a lot more remarkable than we thought. All right. So what were the key highlights? The premium index recorded 6.9%. See, like I said, the major guys, the heavyweights, were the ones that basically drove stock market up. So the heavyweights like Dangote Cement, FirstHoldCo, those are the ones that you have in the premium index or access as well. They did gain 6.97%. While the NGX 30 index, which is the index for the 30 most capitalized stocks, so the most important stocks on the exchange, gained 4.63%, while the main board index gained 2.9%. So all around performance, as you can see. But the standard performance were the industrial goods index, which is quite good because the industrial goods index represents the index for manufacturing goods, like, goods that are, well, let's not call it manufacturing, but goods that are like industrial in nature. So that's also where you have like some Boa Cement, Dangote Cement, Better Glass, all these industrial companies. So they did well. They surged 19% during the week, driven mostly by Boa Cement. The NGX Banking Index also gained 5.3%. The likes of GTCO, Stanbic, FirstHoldCo, all doing pretty well. The Fugas all had a resounding week in terms of gains. We did see one stock touch 100 naira for the first time ever, or like first time that we've seen a banking stock touch 100 naira. We're going to get to that at some point on the show. But on the flip side, the insurance index did post a small decline during the week, but all around fantastic performance. And so you're going to look at this and ask yourself, is there really any like upside in the stock market now? Because it looks like shares are really flying. Well, if you follow my private personal blog, FCM.ng, I did mention a few weeks ago that maybe it's about time you start to slow down investing in stocks, because a lot of stocks are at all-time highs or at multi-year highs, and so they're pretty expensive. So what tends to happen is that you're going to see some pullback because people are going to take profits, and so when you wait for those pullbacks, you might want to get back in. So there is a fresh article today on FTM.ng. Again, FTM stands for Follow the Money, of course, followthemoney.ng, FTM.ng, where we did also provide useful guidance on our latest stock picks, the stocks that we're looking at, we're tracking, we're recommending, for the week. So you want to check FTM.ng for that. Of course, it's subscriber based, so it's not for everyone. I mean, you gotta really want to invest in stocks and understand what you're doing, because it's not like it's an investment advice. So you might want to check it out. Anyway, so we get into the top losers and gainers for the week. Bottom was University Press, down 13.4% during the week, and then Ella Leaks. Anyway, Ella Leaks was down 14.49%, closed at 10 naira 80 kobo. Legend Internet, newly listed company, down 16%, closed at 5 naira 85 kobo. Universal Insurance PLC, down 17%, closed at 72 kobo. Custodian Hallmark Holdings PLC, down 17.36%, close at 3 naira. Champions Breweries, down 17.5% to close at 12 naira 29 kobo. Caverton Offshore PLC, down 19% to close at 6 naira 46 kobo. Kutix, down 19.5%, close at 3 naira 70 kobo. And of course, rounding up the top two losers was RT Briscoe, which was down 22.37%, and Academy Press, leading the charge, down 24.32%, within the charge of the losers, that is. Of course, so who were the major gainers? Dangote Cement. Imagine a Dangote Cement stock gaining a whopping 16%. I mean, that's a stock that is worth over 12 trillion. So gaining 16% is incredible. So Dangote essentially, made billions in increase in his net worth last week alone because of that 16.47% jump that we did see. CAP PLC, one of my favorite stocks, gained 17.29% to close at 71.9 naira per share. It's just incredible. Stanbic is likely going to be opening at 100 naira today if everything goes as planned. The stock was up 18.38% to close at 99.5. So hitting that number closely, that magic 100 naira per share. Nestle Nigeria PLC up 20% to 1.8. Do y'all remember when I said Nestle was on my radar? Nestle was trading at 900 naira at that time on this show this year. Or was it last year? Anyway, on this show, it's 1.8 at the moment. FTM.ng. Triple G and Company up 20.67% to close at 4.32. Secure Electronic Technology PLC up 21% to close at 121 kobo. Industrial and Medical Gas IMG gained 24% to close at 42 naira. While ABC Transport Company gained 28% to close at 5 naira 65 kobo. This is one stock I've had several years ago. I need to go and check one of my stockbrokers to see if I still have this stock. For it to have gained 28% in 1 week, that's a remarkable return there. And of course, the top gainers, Bua Cement from nowhere just came out of the blocks and gained 31.2%. Unicell Intellect also gained 32.59%, rounding up the top gainers for the week. So, astonishing week for the stock market. Interesting to see how the market pans out this week as investors await. Remember what I talked about, the MPC, the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, which is taking place this week, where we'll know whether the central bank is finally going to cut rates or just going to keep rates stable as it's been for some months now, almost a year now. We've had it at 27.5% or so. So are they going to want to cut rates or not? Who knows? All right, we will be back. We're going to take a short break. And when we're back, we're going to look at some of the news that made the rounds during the week. You want to pay attention to some of the ones that I have to say. This is Follow the Money, brought to you by Nairametrics. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Follow the Money, brought to you by Nairametrics. Of course, my name is Ugodre, and we do this every Monday on this channel, 8 to 8:30. If you miss any part of this show, because it's going live, you can always go to Nairametrics YouTube channel, Nairametrics TV, and you will get this version of the show as a podcast. Of course, we do have other podcasts as well on the show that you might want to listen to as well, other interesting ones. Oh, by the way, Drinks and Mics, our flagship podcast, we're having a live audience session tomorrow. If you're one of the special 40 people, there's just going to be 40 invites only. If you want to be part of it, you might want to check Nairametrics social media handle for what it takes to be one of those selected to be in a live audience. It's going to be fun, huge networking moment. You're going to meet some of the faces behind Drinks and Mics. And it's going to be in a live audience session, beautiful session with a whole lot of stuff that are associated with Drinks and Mics. So you don't want to miss that. All right, so back to the show. What a week it was, as I mentioned. One of the biggest stories last week was news that, of an off-market sale and the NGX that we did track last week. Nairametrics is one of the first to break it. That First Holding, the parent company of First Bank, did witness a massive off-market transaction during the week, and it did happen on July 16th. About 10 billion units of shares of the company moved at about share price of 323 naira per share. That's over 340 or so billion naira. Astonishing amount of money to cross the exchange in one day. Yeah. So that kind of raised a lot of red flags. They were like, what exactly is going on? Who is buying and who is selling? And of course, that also drove the share price of the company to about 32.2 Naira. And behind the entire trades were a number of brokers, and they include Cardinal Stone, Meristem, Rencap, Regent Asset Management, United Capital, Stabia IBTC Stockbrokers, and even First Securities as well, at least from what we heard did happen. And so we did try to find out what was going on, who is actually selling those shares, and what is going on in FirstHoldCo. And the feedback was that it was Barbican Capital. Barbican Capital is the investment vehicle owned by Otsudeko, former chairman of FirstHoldCo. And so appears that he's exiting the bank. And of course, we don't know. There's a lot of backstory around that since billionaire Femi Otondala took over chairmanship of the bank. So there's been some back and forth about, who owns majority shareholding, but it appears Obatudeko is now exiting the bank. We did hear it wasn't only him, it was him and Leadway Pension as well, who were also one of the majority shareholders of the bank and long-standing shareholders of the bank. So they were exiting the bank, and that was what was behind the trade. Of course, it then descended into some kind of rumor. Who exactly was buying those shares? Because 10 billion units is a whole lot, right? So who's exactly buying these shares? And the gist was all over the place. We weren't sure who was buying. We did hear a number of rumors, but we like to wait for official statements. And FirstHoldCo did finally issue an official statement during the week, stating that it was bought by an investment company and a vehicle. We do understand it's an SPV called RC Investments Limited. And from what we gather, it is an SPV owned by Rencap, and they are holding that shares on behalf of someone, on behalf of a number of people. We understand. Not really sure who those guys are, but I mean, so because we're not sure, we really can't say. We did hear some things, but we don't know who it is. We can't be sure. We can't rest assured. And so different news all over the place around it, but that's the official reason, official story behind the trade. And so that had gotten the bank to about 32 or so Naira per share, making it one of the top gainers, of course, during the week. And it did drive the share price up significantly by about over 20%. And I think we did mention how much is basically gained during the week as well for that. So interesting news coming up from FirstHoldCo. I do understand that there's a private placement coming up pretty soon as the bank gears up to hit its 500 billion Naira recapitalization target. And so that is like going to be the next step. So interesting to see how the share price of this bank pans out over the next few weeks as the market continues to surge. So that was one of the major stories last week. Of course, the other story was GTCO. GTCO did complete their listing on the London Stock Exchange. And as I did mention in FTM last week, it was an incredible milestone. I was there to witness it myself. And so they came back and basked in the glory of a wonderful, event in the UK, and the stock market did reward that stock incredibly. It touched 101 Naira at some point before scaling back to under 100 Naira by the end of the week. But that basically made it the first stock to hit over 100 Naira in share price, in Nigeria for any Nigerian bank. And GTCO, as things stand, is still the most valuable bank in Nigeria till date. Incredible, isn't it? So very, very interesting, because when GTCO did his right issue last year, or his public offer last year, it was going for about $50 or so. And they did do their GDR. So in case you're wondering what GDR is, GDR was basically Global Depository Receipts. And that was what GT Bank did several years ago when we had that first wave of bank consolidation, and a lot of people were basically trying to either acquire companies, merge, or find money somewhere else. But GT always done things kind of differently, and they had the GDR on the UK exchange. So that GDR is what they are now exiting now and converting into shares. So if you had GDR, your one GDR would give you an equivalent of 50 GT Bank shares. So if you had two GDR, it means you have 100 GT Bank shares. And the conversion rate was 70 naira per unit, 70 naira per unit. I did have a friend who called and said, oh, my dad had his shares about several years ago and blah, 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 and all that. He did take a haircut though, because the share price at that time was very different from now. So, but nevertheless, and of course, exchange rate has changed anyways. But nevertheless, it's 17 naira per share. So you can imagine the gain already. So between 17 naira per share conversion and 19 naira plus, that's a whopping gain from investors of GTCO. So solid news for GTCO shareholders during the week. Another interesting story was Fidelity Bank. We did also track that there was some share sale of Fidelity Bank shares during the week. About 1.1 billion units moved, as well. And then we kind of spotted it and we were like, what is going on again? Another off-market trade? Yeah, and Fidelity Bank is one of those banks that is basically knocking on the door of tier one. So what exactly is behind that? What's up with that? And we dug deep and found out that, according to our sources, that it was an AMCON deal. So AMCON basically selling some of its shares, or some shares that he owns in Fidelity Bank. You do remember AMCON took over shares from some, bank directors or bank shareholders who were indebted to other banks, or some shareholders who were indebted to other banks. And so AMCON took over those loans, and they've had these things for years. So that was a sale and behind it. And we do understand that is warehoused by Cardinal Stone, but we also do understand as well that there's somebody who actually owns it, some oil and gas security company or so, or owner owns those shares. I mean, we don't really say this thing except we're very, 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 very sure. So we can't just name names, but that's what we heard. So solid stuff for Fidelity Bank shares. FCMB also experienced similar as well during the week. They also had some share sale, and it was also again driven by AMCON sale as well. We're not really sure who the other party is, but we suspect it's probably someone, again, Cardinal Stone, I think, was involved in this. What's up with that company? Like Securities, that stockbroker seems to be involved in a lot of the mega deals that we've been seeing in the last few days. So a lot of good stuff they're doing there. I can imagine what their fees is going to look like over the next few weeks. So yeah, a whole lot of other stories, but time will not permit us to go through them. By the way, UBA has their right issue plan, 157 billion, which they plan to do pretty soon. So expect more from that in the coming days and weeks. All right, this has been Follow the Money, brought to you by Nairametrics. Of course, you can listen to the show again on our YouTube channel, Nairametrics TV. Just hop there and subscribe and follow. And of course, you can watch other Nairametrics shows. Feedback, I like feedback. Give me feedback. What do you think about FTM? Are you a subscriber yet? Is there something you want us to do that we're not doing? Something extra you want us to do? Do let us know in the comment section on our YouTube channel. Until we do this again next week, do have a profitable week ahead. Bye.